You're listening to the Cantina Cast, your home for thought-provoking Star Wars talk. Join Albert Jonesy in breaking down the latest news, trailers, movies, and of course, your favorite characters from a galaxy far, far away.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Cantina Cast. My name is Albert Padilla, and this is episode 541, our coverage, walkthrough, breakdown of the fourth episode of Season 3 of The Bad Batch, an episode entitled A Different Approach, and good episode. It was a character episode. Didn't really do a whole lot. Well, I shouldn't say that. There was enough here for, I think, everybody to kind of enjoy, including this man, Jonesy, who's with me tonight. Jonesy, welcome to the show. How are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic, and I don't believe you. You don't sound like Albert. But you look like Albert.
This show almost didn't happen because I was not feeling good. I'm like super congested. And I know I'd make this, I was listening back to some of the other episodes, like in the same time frame, in this February, March-ish time frame. Yeah. Every year, Albert gets sick and we come on the air and I have to talk about it. But it's just, I don't know. I'm terrible with allergies. It's really bad right now. So
it's February in Texas. It's spring here, basically. The weather can't figure out what it wants to do. So yeah, it just comes with the territory. But, you know, kudos to you for powering through it. And also we didn't have an alternate day. So thanks for right. Sticking with us.
Yeah, the show must go on. But hey, before we get started, how about some shout outs for some very special people?
Yeah, thank you to all of our Patreon members. Of course, those are those part of the tribe. Now part of the tribe members, Rob, Mike, Lauren, Dante, Riss, Justin, Jackson, Sharkman, Dan, Daz, Isabella, Uncle Leon, Josh, Jacob, and Rita Reborn. And then of course, Delusions of Grandeur members, our top tier, Rod, CJ, Alex, Steve, and Daz. If you're not a Patreon member and you're curious about what we do, we talked about Project Necromancer this past week, which was super exciting and went on for a while, and good episode. And you can find all that over at cantinacast.com/Patreon. We have collections set up now, so you can go find what you're looking for easily, depending on the type of thing you're wanting. If you're not sure, just use the search function. We have a lot of stuff back there for years and years and years of content. And then, of course, all of our amazing people that have joined us in the live stream tonight. Welcome, Steph, Sky, Music Train, JJ Skywalker, My Star Wars Guys, One Up versus CPU, Skywalker's Academy. We see some other people lurking in the background. Please do say hi. We'd love for you to come out. If you're listening to this, cantinacast.com/YouTube is where you can subscribe, like the channel. And if you want to leave us a comment, we would appreciate that too. What were your favorite moments from A Different Approach this week? You're on mute.
This was a really good episode. There was a lot of great moments in here. And we'll talk about all those here right now, as a matter of fact. So,
whoa, we have a Mike Rondo sighting.
What in the world's going on? Oh, jeez, come on!
All right, shut the show down.
Yes, just edit this out. Just edit that right out there. No, welcome, Mike. Okay, so let's talk about. Give me your initial thoughts. Like, I guess the one thing that sticks out to me beyond anything else, and it's because it might be because we went through some crazy headcanon theories before we did this whole season. I guess I wasn't expecting the reunion to happen as quickly as it did. I think there's some pros and cons to that. I'm super excited now that we got that out of the way. That leaves a whole lot of territory to do other things that we didn't know we'd be, possibly have the time to get to. But at the same time, I don't know. It felt like I enjoyed the very ending. But I don't know that I don't know if they felt away enough for me to really take in what I think they were trying to do at the very end. It was very emotional. Don't get me wrong. It made Wrecker cry. But a part of me feels like I just wish that we would have had a little bit more length in there. But at the same time, again, the pro is we got that out of the way. So let's plow forward and talk about, Project Necromancer or whatever heck we want to talk about now.
Yeah, I think, did they nail the landing? Yeah, I think so. I'm with you. I think a little bit more time to establish more episodes. We know that time, there's many months in between from when they've seen each other, but I think from a number of episodes, it probably would have been nice to see it go on a little bit longer, but they stuck the landing. Man, some of the shots leading up to the reunion were absolutely breathtaking. It's some of the best I think we've seen in Star Wars animations, to be honest with you. They have put them as my wallpapers on my desktops, but I think it would have benefited from it, but again, the emotion was there, Wrecker and Hunter, and the tension with Crosshair. So we're getting this a little bit sooner than we anticipated. I'm okay with that, I guess. I probably would have liked a little more. I think what I would have liked about this episode, I liked it that we got an Omega and Crosshair episode because we we need it. I think it's the two of the characters. I think my expectations when it started becoming that buddy episode, or it really felt like last season when Tech and Omega had their scenes. I was like, I got excited because I was like, oh my gosh, we're going to get something along those lines where it's kind of cold for a while. It's a bit on the surface, but then we're going to have a moment like they did in the cave with Tech, where they're going to be able to connect and they're going to have that kind of thing. And we didn't quite get that in this episode. Maybe it's still possible later on, but now it kind of feels like it's switching over to Crosshair versus the Bad Batch, and Omega is going to be playing mediator in that kind of way. But I like where we were. I like the idea behind this episode. It was kind of cool to see Omega be able to put some of her skills in gambling, to the real test out in the wild.
Yeah, so my thoughts are, I agree with all of that, honestly, and I'm with you. Like, it feels like I would have liked to have that one-on-one moment with Tech. We kind of had that in the first couple episodes when they were there and just kind of talking, but it wasn't the same kind of effect. This may actually turn out to be even better because we're going to have the full family dynamic, right? This kind of round table discussion where, like you said, where she's going to get stuck, I think, mediating and say, no, look, he did this, he did that, he's not a bad guy, and these guys are like, no, he absolutely is not. At some point, all that seems like it's going to get resolved. I don't think they're going to go their own ways. In fact, we know that from the trailer. We know that he is going to be fighting alongside them at some point. So all this will get resolved here soon. Let me get this banner up here. I don't know why that's still there. But I felt like this episode was a really good character pieces individually. Maybe not so much for both of them, although we had really nice kind of funny moments from time to time between them. A lot of the comments, the stuff that he was doing, saying to her, and she was kind of firing back. We have that positive and negative effect throughout the episode. But for Crosshair, it was a very different view about him. He was, if you go back to episode 1 of this season, he said, if I ever had the chance, I'm not going to go back and save you. This is now the second time he had an opportunity to leave and he didn't. So we knew that was there. We knew that person was buried, but seeing it firsthand and seeing the softer side of him come out, the brother that she lost still being there, was really great to see. It feels like for him also, I thought what was interesting is his approach to the Empire. Although we didn't see it exactly, but I think he's got a different taste now for the Empire. Like before it was, hey, I work with these guys, I don't really agree with them, it's just my kind of way to survive. And now I think it's, shoot first, ask questions later. Like I think he hates these guys, which is why he was itching, to take it his way, and go guns blasting before trying to negotiate with, or do all the stuff that Omega was doing. I like the amount of respect that he had for Omega. Like he just went with the flow. He entrusted her with so many pivotal moments in this episode. And honestly, throughout all of this, throughout the entire escape, he's put his hands in this child and has trusted her to be, carry his life and make sure that they get where they need to get. Even though he may not agree with it, he's willing to go along with it. Now, some of it could be the fact that, he's got his little shaky hands. He's not really steady of himself. He's still kind of down and out. But it's a very different kind of Crosshair than I think we saw during seasons 1 and seasons 2.
Yeah, it's a good observation because I think some of it, I think you're right, is that I think that confidence that he's just lacking it now, where he used to have he had absolute faith and trust in his abilities. He could take every shot. He could make every shot. I think it's still in his mind. And towards the end of the episode, you kind of feel like I could take half these guys out before they'd even know it. That confidence is still lurking there. His mind says he can do it. But it's like when we get older, right? Our mind says you can still do these things, but physically your body's like, yeah, you tried, man, but it's just not going to work out this time. And you almost feel like he's starting to recognize that, and it's kind of shaking him to the core, where he's losing that confidence. So he's deferring a bit to Omega. But I like the way you put that. Like there is a little bit of that respect though for Omega, of giving her that trust, or just laying that trust out there for her, that she can kind of lead, right? And she does have these ideas, and with that lack of confidence that he has, they need something. And I think when the episode title of A Different Approach is almost, I think, more speaking to Crosshair than anything else, of being open to saying that he can't blast his way because he's going to have to be forced into a different way of doing things. And Omega always has a different perspective on it. And of course, she's, trying to save Batcher. She wants to go back and save the clones, all of these things where Crosshair has strictly been in survival mode because really all he's had is himself for the last many months or a year, or however long it's been since he parted from the team, when he was still responding to, good soldiers follow orders.
Yeah. And on Omega, let me just say my piece with her. I mean, this series so far has now given us, one of the most competent, caring, intelligent, talented, level-headed, Star Wars characters we've ever gotten, and it's from a small kid. She's so well-rounded. She's so very well balanced. And in this episode, we got to see her kind of play different roles. I mean, you highlighted the gambler, right? That role, that was, that was kind of nice throwback, callback to, some of, like you said, lessons, stuff that she learned from Sid. But we also saw, at one point she was a competent pilot. She landed a ship that was going down, didn't have engines, didn't have power, and was able to land that thing safely, right? That's a testament to her training from tech, but, her abilities in themselves. There's also the hustler, right, at the cantina. She's sitting there hustling people. So a little bit of a scoundrel approach going on there when she was trying to be real charismatic, trying to, talk to the ticket lady, and, talk about, hey, maybe we can deal, figure out another way around this kind of thing. I mean, these are all characteristics that I don't think any of us would have thought we would have gotten from that little girl that walked out, in that very first episode when she walked out and saw the Bad Batch for the first time. But then she, there was moments in there where she was a negotiator, she was a diplomat, she's been, she was a liberator of all the animals at one point. So, and all of this kind of stems from that single purpose about not wanting to leave anybody behind. Like there were a few times she didn't want to leave Batcher. She didn't want to leave all the animals. She doesn't want to leave the clones. It's just, it all comes from that center, a very consistent core, caring person that wants to save everybody, right? This, and, we talk about it. She's a child and it's very optimistic to think that way, but I don't know. So far, she seems to be delivering on just about every front. So why not trust her to continue with that,
Yeah, but you kind of feel like she needs to be taken down a notch at some point, right? Because I think one thing I recognized when I was watching this episode the second and third time is that we kind of get it with Omega, and we kind of get it with Crosshair too. They're very polar opposites. They're going to argue. They kind of stay their line a little bit, and she does so many things well, and they kind of turn out. And I know there's plenty of examples where they haven't, but it feels like a lot of things have kind of gone her way. Even when she's worked around it, she's persevered and found it, which I think is great. But also there has to be a moment where reality kind of sets back in, right? And so there's going to be that taking her down a notch to continue to kind of rehumanize her in that kind of way. And so I'm curious how long it will take before she kind of faces adversity again, because we want Omega to see adversity again for a while, and we had it a little bit when she was in the Imperial Complex. But again, she had a lot of liberty in the facility, those types of things. I think it would be great to kind of reground the character and have her come back down to earth a little bit. So again, not deterring her confidence, but also just understanding consequences and some of the things that she learned early on, back mostly in season 1 and a little bit in season 2, of course, with tech and whatnot. But I'd like to see that kind of revisit here in kind of the mid-season form, so that we get that final escalation and the resolution towards the very end of this.
Yeah, I think you're right. We'll probably see some of that at some point here. The last thing I'll say about, I guess, opening thoughts is I still chuckle every time it says skip intro. It takes me longer to grab the remote and put the button before it just goes on to the next skip. So it's just so we called this out, I think, at the very beginning, like the first episode. I think we called this out and said, why is that even there? It's still there 3 seasons later. Whatever.
And then they stopped for a little while, and then it came back like after a few episodes. It was weird.
Yeah, it's bizarre. But okay, so let's get into our walkthrough. And of course, we talked about the ship. They're starting in hyperspace. The ship's been hit. I didn't even catch that. We had seen that the ship was down on the ground. We assumed that was Omega and Crosshair, and never dawned on me that and I went back and looked. Yeah, sure enough, it does take a hit. It just completely flew over my head. So of course it was a oh my god moment when we saw that. And then we've already talked about her, just the competence in being able to fly. They eventually crash, and it was interesting. I mentioned this in kind of my opening thoughts about Omega, but she does seem very focused on her first, they just crashed. They're escapees, fugitives on the run, and the first thing that's on her mind is we got to go back. We got to figure out a way to get back there because we got to save all those clones, right? So I think that's foreshadowing, and maybe we'll get to this at the very end of this. I think you and I had been talking about how the last episode, right, the cavalry has arrived. At some point, they're going to go back in and free all the clones, right, or free a lot of the people there on Tantus. I think that still can happen, but her saying that we got to go back and free everybody, save everybody, it just feels like that's going to happen. It feels like if there's any one person that can convince everybody, similar to like Ezra, right, when he pulled everybody together and said, we got to rally around to defend our planet. She seems like the kind of person that's going to be able to pull everybody together and negotiate and say, look, we all have to go do this. We're all brothers and sisters. We're all one of the same. We're all one big family. let's go back to Tantus and get the rest of our family kind of thing. What do you think?
Yeah, and it ties back to the end of season 2, right? I think she made that decision after everything went so poorly with Tech, and Hunter's like, "Hey, we're going to go to Pabu. What do you think?" And she kind of reluctantly gives the nod, and then things go to hell again, and she realizes the folly of her decision, and like, no, if we're not here for, to your point, if we're not here for our brothers, if we're not here for her sister, and even maybe a Nala say, then what's the point, right? They have a responsibility. If they can, they should. And I think this goes back to some of the things that Rex was saying that she really picked up on, right? That idealism from the perspective of a youth, but also the maturity of saying, I have a responsibility in order to do something about this, and we are so uniquely positioned to be able to. I feel like I've probably said this twice or 2 or 3 times last season, but they have a responsibility to be able to go back there and help because they know they're the one of the few people that know where this facility is. And the atrocities that are happening there, they need to stop it. And so I think she kind of learned that lesson at the end of last season. And I'm happy to see that carrying forward a bit now to where this is still something that's really important for her. I think the counterpoint to that, though, is Crosshair, right? Of kind of like he said in the first few episodes of what's your primary objective? And so you have to still have that focus, and you have to have that discipline in order to say, yes, that's maybe where I want to go in the end game. But I still have to take care of the short term. I can't just sacrifice everything and go, just go hauling in there and think I'm going to do anything, right? They're in no position to be able to do it. They're 2 people. They really don't have any supplies. They're stranded. They have difficulty to communicate, no real ways of communicating with anybody. So first things first, secure and stabilize, and then you can start to get a plan together and figure out what's next. So I like that counterpoint between the 2. And that's why these 2 are really interesting characters to be teamed up. And I was kind of hoping we'd see a little bit more of it. We'll go a whole episode, of course, but I like that counterbalance between the 2.
Yeah. Qui-Gon Jay chimed in and said Omega might be the I think best written character in all of Star Wars animation. Yeah, I think she's right up there. I wouldn't disagree with any of that. And then he also said, pretty sure I heard the Porg in the Jumanji scene. Yes, there was a Porg. It's the first thing I heard of. I can see the Orabesh on that crate when he lifts it up, because it's when it happens when that crate gets lifted and turned.
Oh, it just says caution and I forgot what it said.
Oh, maybe these are deadly porgs, like venomous porgs.
It didn't say porgs. It was very generic. It was just like live animals or something like that. I can't remember what it was, but it was very generic. It was nothing noteworthy.
That's why Mike was here. He just doesn't want to admit it. The porgs.
The porgs.
Here for the porgs.
Pork potty.
Spaceport. So they get, what's his name? Crosshair is like, oh yeah, I found a town, whatever, east of here. It says that the Empire is going to be looking for them. We get to see Batcher survive the crash. That would be it's awesome. And then we flip over. So, talking about, we flip back over to Mount Tantus. The only scene that we really get there, we get Hemlock a little bit later towards the very end of the episode. But, Nala Se is imprisoned for all intents and purposes. And I think Hemlock doesn't believe her. I think it's pretty clear that he doesn't believe her. Although she says, hey, you know what? That was just a false positive, right? We have, because they can't prove it. They can't test. And she knows that. So it's probably safer for her to say that it is a false positive. But I mean, he's pretty on to the fact that, suddenly when someone else is testing blood samples, now right. Omega shows up, right? It's too coincidental. It's not going to get by him. We all know that. But, he also threatens that she may not live very much longer. So I think it might be an idle threat. We can, I'll just kind of leave it there. I was going to throw you a question, but I'll maybe save it for the very, very end of the episode. Go ahead.
Well, what did you think about Nala Se's comment of, a false positive or a positive in that scenario was an aberration, just like Omega? Do you really, what do you think when you heard that comment? She called Omega an aberration.
Yeah. I mean, I think she's trying to downplay it all, and I think you could make an argument. I just don't think for Hemlock, there's no way he's too onto it. You know what I mean? Like any other person, maybe that would have given them some doubt or put some doubt in the back of their mind. It's not going to work with Hemlock. He's too much of a scientist too.
Did you think the comment that was around that she was a female clone then? Is that the aberration aspect of that?
That's kind of more as just as a non-reg clone. So more like Clone Force 99 kind of thing. Yeah,
I kind of viewed it maybe as the different gender of the clone. And again, we only see her and Emery. Yeah, so I'm kind of curious if that's the angle she was playing. Of course, she was playing dumb, right? And saying, hey, this is just normal, right? This is just science sometimes. But I was kind of wondering if that was where she was going with that. But I was curious on your perspective on that one.
No, I hadn't thought about that. So I actually like that idea, but I thought it was just more on the surface. You're thinking too deep, man. Too deep. Let's see. Okay, so we get to where the hell are we here on the show notes now? All right, so they get to the Lao, which I think was the name of the place.
Right.
We saw this in the trailer, right? We saw that.
LAO, not LAU, or no, LAU, not LAO.
Okay,
So not like Lao She, but Lao. There's another Lao in Star Wars that we were visiting in season 1 or something. This is different. Yeah,
a little bit different here, but definitely one of the places that we saw during the trailer. And the Empire's, of course, has got a presence here. It's she's talking about, we got to send out a communication to Hunter and Wrecker, and he's like, no, they'll intercept any long-term comms, can't do that. And so they go and do kind of a quick change. It's her idea to get into civilian clothing, which I thought was really funny to see Crosshair dressed the way he was. It seemed like it was pretty much out of character. And she had that one line in there where she was like, see, isn't this better? And he's like, no. Which is very much on point in character for him.
right.
And then they get the new plan, which is to sneak into the spaceport, steal a shuttle. And, they're talking, this is where Crosshair is looking at the guards. He notices that there's a couple there. He wants to take them out. He knows he can take about half of them out before they actually are able to even respond. And this is where we get the tagline of, let's try a different approach. Her different approach is let's go in and try to, negotiate peacefully without blasters.
Or a bribe, whichever one comes first, right?
Right. Yeah, there are other ways to, what was Kenobi's line in A New Hope?
But there are alternatives to fighting.
Alternatives to fighting, yeah. So that's kind of what she's taking here. And so they get into she tries to bribe, talking about chain codes, surprise, we got that, came up again. It's funny, it was never talked about, and now we get it in every show, at least one episode, which is funny. Right. 15,000, we can almost buy our own ship for that much. It's just, the prices in some of this stuff is kind of crazy, and the price, like the amount of credits that she got from the bribery was kind of crazy too.
Right.
But we could talk more about that. And anyway, so
the concept of credits in Star Wars is really difficult to understand. Like how much is a lot, because it seems like small amounts are a lot, and then big amounts are not as much as they should be.
See, if you played the Star Wars role-playing game from 1987, it's not that weird. It's actually, it all makes sense. They had a pretty good like foundational currency that was consistent.
Well, that makes sense because it's a game. You have to have
that's what I'm saying. There's an economy. You have to have it for the game, so it makes sense.
Right. Yeah,
but it does. I don't know. It doesn't really translate. Like they've stepped away from it. But some stuff still tracks. Like the price for a ship back in the game was like 15,000. Well, it's the Star Wars pricing, really, is what it comes down to. But hey, inflation. Who knows? Right? Who knows what the Empire did, or what the Empire did to the economy, the global economy, when they took over. So there was another little witty comment there. He tells her that went well, right? And she's like, stow it. I'm like, shut up.
That was good.
Yeah, it was good. You get the nice little dynamic going on there. We get the creepy kid with the goggles, won't show his face, just quickly selling, I don't know what, fish, or I forget what it was.
It was a fruit, but
it
looked like a Melu run, but it wasn't a Melu run.
Mm-hmm.
So close, but not quite.
Yeah, foreshadowing. We'll see that little punk a little bit later.
All right.
And then they get into the cantina of some sorts where they're doing the gambling. They leave Batcher outside because he has to get stolen. And she calls it a temporary requisition of funds. And that poor Trandoshan, like, I don't know how much money that dude had. I think she ended up taking, what was it? I don't even remember, 25,000 from him or something.
Yeah, something like that.
15,000.
What really blew my mind, though, is that she came into the table with no money.
Yeah.
And then she accrued all the cash. Like, how would someone allow, maybe it was just because she was a kid, they didn't even think twice about it. But like after a while, it's like, they didn't put anything up. So why are you even letting them sit down?
Yeah. That's just part of Star Wars. But yeah, again, maybe that speaks to her skill set. She was able to swindle this person into thinking that she had the funds, even though we never saw it on screen.
Well, no, she kind of made the comment too, because I think Crosshair challenged, like, how are you going to play? You don't have any money. Well, they don't know that. And so somehow they just kind of I think I probably just got started, and, the guy got caught up because, again, he thought it was just an easy mark and wasn't really going to wager or anything. And all of a sudden he starts losing his butt.
Yeah. Maybe they're like weak drinkers, the Trandoshans. They get drunk real and tipsy, and he was just kind of like, sure.
But it was very reminiscent of season 1, of course, where they were playing, I think they were playing Dejarik, or not Dejarik, but Sabak or something like that in Sid's Cantina. So very, very reminiscent of season 1, of course, and calling back to the skills and the environment that she, quote unquote, grew up in.
Mm-hmm. Let's see. This is where the Imperial Captain Man, walks into the bar, which sounds like the beginning of a joke. Omega draws his attention because, everybody's standing around her. She's won all this tons of money. And then he challenges Omega and then says, he catches her outside, or catches her, I think, inside, and says, hey, there's a fine of $10,000 if you're keeping up with the math here. So all in, she made like $35,000 and walked away in what seemed like in a matter of like 5 minutes, but I'm sure it was a little bit longer than that.
Well, and so StarWars.com, for those that may not be aware, they actually post a little behind the scenes stuff. And apparently so not only did they create a whole game, like literally they play tested this game. It's called Balans, I think. Balaans.
Okay. It didn't look like Sabak or any of the other games that we
it was not. It was a brand new game. They actually created it from scratch, and they have a whole set of rules and everything, and it actually plays, and they like it, and it's fun. So you're going to find this on shelves at some point.
Yeah, right. That's
but
exactly.
So they actually played this game, and they actually shot a whole scene of, like, or not even a scene. They shot a lot of footage, apparently, of this game in progress. And they cut, of course, most of it to, for time and interest and things like that. But it was just really interesting how deep they went into this one game and how much effort they put into it. But you can kind of read some of that on StarWars.com. They've got some behind the scenes stuff over there.
Oh, that's cool. I hadn't seen that yet. Yeah. Yeah, no doubt. That's going to show up at the Disney stores here very soon, Targets, wherever, Walmart, wherever your fine quality game products are sold. All right, so they go outside, and lo and behold, Batcher's now missing. And this little punk kid shows up again, says, hey, I know where he is. 10,000, give me 10,000 credits. And I just love the fact that Crosshair's like,
I had enough.
I've had enough of this.
I can take this kid. I know that.
He came this close to just putting the blaster in that kid's mouth and just, threatening him, which he still did. Of course, the kid backed down. And, so she tells him, it felt like a very, well, so they go about, she wants to go save Batcher. He's like, no, we got to get the hell out of Dodge because the Empire's coming. Hemlock is coming. And so they're kind of at this crossroads. And it was interesting because this was the first time that I felt like Omega was going to literally walk off and say, I think she was kind of done.
Oh, she was fed up. Yeah,
she was fed up with it. Like, hey, I have tried to be on the best side of everything with you for months, literally months and months, and within the cell, the escape here, everything that's going on Lao, and you will not. You're just so persistent, right? You're miserable, and I've had it. I'm gonna go get my dog, kind of thing. I think that really struck a chord with him. That was the first time. It felt very similar to like Leia. I know Steph said Omega and Leia would make a hell of a team. She put that in the comments. But it felt very much like in the spirit of Leia telling Han, if money is all you love, then that's all you'll receive, kind of thing, right? She was just done. Like, I'm tired of trying to see the good guy in you. Exactly.
That was exactly the scene that I had in mind whenever I saw it. And again, I was kind of glad, right? She had enough. She was fed up. She threw it at him, saying, then go. You don't need me. You said you'd leave anyway, right? So just you go and take off, and put your money where your mouth is, Crosshair. You have a choice to make. So be gone with you. I'll do what's right for me. I'll do what's right for our family, and you can just do what you've always done. And so, and then thankfully he made the right choice, right? We knew we would make the right choice, but
yeah.
But again, and even in the cantina, you saw a little bit of that. I mean, he's man calls, when he's talking to Omega, says, "I haven't seen you or your dad here before," right? But you actually see some of the reactions from Crosshair.
Oh yeah.
When she is in a threatening situation, you can see that he kind of wants to respond, right? There's a little bit of that fatherly or big brother, however you want to qualify it, of that instinct kicking in, and she's like the one saying, "No, I got this," because she's been in these situations before, so she could stay calm. But that parental, defense mechanism seems to kick in right there, where he's trigger happy too. But yeah, I like that. Yeah. I like that we get little glimpses of that with Crosshair throughout this episode, leading up to his decision. And so it's not so just abrupt that he just changes his mind. Of course, we knew this was all here the entire time, and the previous time he saved her back in season 1. But so it's good to kind of see little pieces of it all the way throughout. It's just not a stark, just a flip of a switch being changed for him.
Yeah. Yeah, and she walks off. I don't even believe that she was calling his bluff, right? She was going to try to call his bluff. She just turns and walks away, and he turns some walks. I think he takes like one step and realizes, all right, I can't do this. I'm not going to go through with this kind of thing. So, which we all knew, right? He turns around, comes back. They get up to, I guess, what I'm calling the dog pound, although it was a lot more than that. There was a lot of animals there. What was the point of the animals? Like, what were they doing?
This is where it's just kind of interesting. You could make a comment like, well, I don't know, first of all, what were they actually doing? But I kind of thought back to like what Hemlock was saying to Palpatine in the episode where they started talking about Project Necromancer, about all of the other experiments they're doing.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I'm wondering if like, okay, well, maybe some of these animals, of course, most of them were, smaller or slender or whatever, but they're test subjects. So maybe that was going into projects like, I'm not saying they're all going to Tantus or anything like that, but you could, you presume that some of that was going on. It could just be controlling whatever was running rampant around this world. I'm really curious, what was the creature that sucked man back into the cage? Because the tentacles looked very similar, like Rathtar tentacles a little bit, with like those weird things. Yeah, they were really odd, but
it was weird they didn't show it. Like, why wouldn't you take the opportunity to show it? But maybe it's creepier, right? Less is more kind of thing. Because I think once you saw a tentacle, I mean, we all would think that's the first thing that comes to mind. I think is just Rathtar. So that's scary in itself, because we've seen what they did to during the Force Awakens, and then
they killed Burry.
And then I was going to say in the High Republic as well. But yeah, I mean, it was a cool scene, a very Jurassic Park scene too, with just the big thing and it's shaking and
it was.
Someone was getting eaten kind of thing.
There were a lot of scenes, like last season was all about Raiders of the Lost Ark. Like this episode had a lot of Jurassic Park type of moments in it, I think.
Yeah. What are we on? Sorry. I was thinking about something totally different now. Crosshair says that, my skills are being wasted. Again, he wants to, shoot and run a gun kind of thing. This is also where we get the porg. I even have it in my show notes. I heard a porg.
There was a porg.
And the Omega says, she pushes the button and realizes that it's going to free everything. So, that's just going to happen. This is when Captain A-Hole shows up and says, he's contacted Hemlock. He knows who she is. I found the crashed ship. What do you think? I'm dumb. I put 2 and 2 together. You're going to give me all the money back, and you're going to stay here because you're going to get arrested and head back to the cell, right? Go back back to Tantus, wherever you came from. And then she finally, gives in, like, okay, this isn't working. We tried it my way. And big of her to say, all right, all right, Crosshair, do what you do best. She said, all right, let's try things your way. And I was like, finally, yes, we're going to get to Crosshair. I wish they would have given us the moment of Crosshair, like taking out 4 or 5 people with just a couple shots within an instant before they reacted. I was waiting for that. And what we got was just kind of the big battle and everybody running chaos and stuff, which was fine, I think. But I wanted him to have that moment. Like I felt like we were leading up to it and we were going to see it, and we didn't really see it pan out exactly the way that I wanted, but that's just me.
So what's interesting is in the audio description. So if you watch it, I think you only see him really hit 1 stormtrooper. You see him miss the first, but you only see him hit 1. In the audio description, I think they say that he hits like 4, like right off the bat. Yeah. Now, again, audio description and what actually happens on screen are not always lined up, right? But it was interesting that the audio description kind of gave that moment to Crosshair. So maybe you just didn't see it because the blaster fires were so fast and off screen. But yeah. I agree, though. I was kind of hoping that Crosshair would have the moment. I mean, we still get him kind of clutching his hand again, and clearly not quite where he used to be. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, I was happy that we at least got it. He had a moment to like be himself and kind of re-engage and reconnect with his, with his old life, if you will, or the things that are more natural for him.
Yeah, and be able to kind of shoot with the freedom and liberty, knowing that those are Empire people that had done some really horrible things to him. So I think that was, very therapeutic for him in a lot of ways.
Yeah, it was like therapy, you're right.
Yeah. So we get to the Omega kind of opening up the kennels. We get the Jumanji scene. I've heard it called the Dr. Dolittle scene, the stampede from the Lion King, whatever animal catastrophe you want to put in there. Right. It was cool. There was a lot of animals. I didn't get a chance. I mean, this show's not even been out for like, just over 24 hours, but I kind of want to go back and just pause and just see what other animals are in there. Cause I was thinking about, I was like, holy crap, Star Wars has really had a lot of animals over the years. And I wonder if there are a lot of Easter eggs like the porgs in there, but other stuff that we just wouldn't have seen. So I don't know. Did you catch anything or if you heard anything?
No, I know they created a couple of new animals, like a bird and something else. Again, these were the behind the scenes at StarWars.com. You can see some of the stuff.
Yeah.
But no, I think there were a couple that I think we have seen before, but other than that, no, that's not really where I get super interested though in all of the background stuff. So I don't always pay a lot of attention to it unless there's something interesting specifically about it that connects somewhere else.
Yeah, that's fair. Okay, so we get the getaway. So they find the cargo ship there. They jump in. She hits a blaster or whatever, sends it off to hyperspace, and they get away. So We swap back over to the crash site now. Flip over where the crash site's at. Hemlock is now there. He did show up after all, and gets confirmation that they did get away. They did get away just now, and then he orders that they want all their operatives to find Omega. So now, for me, again, because we as human beings want to tie everything together, this now makes sense that we would see Fennec Shan, we would see Cad Bane, maybe Boba Fett. Name your bounty hunter. It feels like we are going to get a bunch of bounty hunters coming in. So I want to come back to this question here in just a little bit, but any comments before we get back to Crosshair's anxiety? Because I think it was a really emotional moment right after this.
No, I think, like you said, I think this is a great scene to be able to tie into some of what we saw in the trailer, and things make a lot more sense now.
Yep. Look at this. My Star Wars guy says the birds were from Gregor's episode of the Clone Wars.
Oh.
There you go.
Thanks, Rob.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about that. So, and I wonder if we are going to see more of those. That's awesome. I'm glad to hear that. Okay, we get back in the ship, and they're scot-free at this point. Although, Crosshair says, look, they're going to track the ship, right? They're going to find us somewhere. We got to ditch this thing. And she says, well, I'm sending out a coded transmission to Hunter and Wrecker. And I felt like this was the most heavy-weighted moment for me of the episode. And I don't think a lot of people are talking about it. Enough people are talking about this. But his response is saying that it's been months, and that they likely won't be alive.
Right.
And I don't buy that he's saying that for the sake of, the reality of things. I think for him, the anxiety is like, holy crap, they are still alive, and now I have to face him. How about we pretend they're not alive, so I don't have to deal with this situation, because I don't want to be the one. I don't want to sit across with them and answer questions and be all that stuff. I think he's trying to convince her and convince himself, like, ooh, you know what? A lot of times past, they're probably dead, and we probably should just go do our own thing at this point. It's really what's doing. And of course, that doesn't persuade her in any way, because she's like, no, they'll be there, right? She has absolute confidence that they will be there.
Right, because she has the Force, she can tell the future. But but no, you're right though. I mean, this is he's nervous, he's scared. This hasn't gone well the last few times that he's come across his brothers, and why wouldn't he be worried? I think he has every right to be worried. How are they going to accept him? I mean, clearly they don't welcome him with open arms, at least at the first scene. But this is something that it's got to bring a lot of anxiety with him. He's been in isolation for so long, and the decisions that he made were completely contradictory, and he hunted his brothers and put them in danger, and did his best, likely to actually kill them or bring them in and be experimenting all these nasty things, right? So, I mean, there's a lot of trepidation there. That makes sense that he would have that, and I think it's only natural for him to do it. Even though he feels like he might be a little bit different, he's not different enough in order for them to really see him as anything other than what he has been the last year or more that they knew him as just the Empire's lackey. So I think a lot of that, he doesn't maybe feel that different either in some ways. And we've definitely not seen that difference on screen, except that he's just kind of got fed up with the Empire. But I'm really hoping that what we saw with, I can't remember the name of the episode, but what was his main episode last season? The Outpost. Like, I really hope that he recounts, and maybe not the whole thing, but little pieces of that, about how he is fundamentally different. And he recalls his experience with that soldier and what he did and carried him back, and what he did to the commander. And then of course they kind of know some of that stuff because Tech found it, but I really hope that comes out to the team and they can start to see that, this is someone that they can trust and that they can welcome back into the family.
Yeah, it's going to be, well, let's get on, because I want to end on kind of that discussion here and what that's going to actually look like. But so they, she lands the ship, and then we get the big reunion here. Really great. I love that shot, that really wide angle, distance shot that they have, and you can see both ships there, Wrecker's on one side and, Omega's on the other. But them coming together, the way he picks her up and he spins her around just like a dad would do with his daughter. He's been crying obviously, and she screams, I know you'd show up. Hunter walks out, and says, we've been through, combed the galaxy 4 times, 5 times, whatever, but you found us, right? They've been looking for, and of course it would be if anybody could do this, it was going to be Omega.
It was such a great comment from Hunter to give her the credit, right?
Exactly. Yeah, right. And that's what I'm saying. It's amazing. It's wonderful to see them constantly reaffirming just how amazing and incredible this little person is, and how wonderful she's become. So, they're not trying to take anything away from her.
Another fun fact. So the moon that they met up on is the same moon that Omega first met Hera on.
I was wondering about that.
It's one of the
because-
moons of Ryloth, yeah.
Yeah, the moon in the background, it's so significant. We don't see that very often, and we saw it in that episode as well. I want to say that was the one where her uncle and whatever had taken her out there and landed for that first time.
Right.
So yeah, very secluded, very hush-hush kind of location, only they would know about, sort of thing. And then Hunter says, "How did you escape?" She says, "I had help." And this is where Crosshair walks out. And yeah, you could see it. I mean, Hunter looked pretty stoic. I don't know that we saw a lot of emotion on his face. Wrecker, on the other hand,
did not look super pleased, right?
did not look pleased at all. And you got to figure, right, a lot of emotion now. And so let's kind of talk. Yeah. Let's tease this out a little bit. So, you've got Wrecker, who seems to be the one that's going to be very emotional, very maybe even anti Crosshair joining the group. You've got Hunter, who's going to be kind of stuck in the middle, probably siding with Wrecker in a lot of ways, but still probably leaning into maybe the advice or the wisdom of Omega, right? Trusting Omega's kind of sense on how things are going, and Omega being stuck between that. I don't know what Crosshair is going to do at this point. Like, he's in a really awkward, very susceptible, very vulnerable position, given everything that's happened. I mean, it wasn't that long ago when he had sold him out, and it wasn't that long ago that he was shooting his own brothers and going after him. He's not much time has passed, right? So I guess, how do you see this out? Do you feel like, and let's just look ahead to the next episode. The next episode is called The Return, and then we get Infiltration followed by Extraction. So if The Return is dealing with the return and the change yet again of the team dynamic of the Bad Batch, that makes sense. How would you feel if that episode was really just kind of focused around that? And maybe they have a couple things here and there, but it's about these teams kind of coming together, coalescing again, and what that struggle looks like. Is that going to be something that you'd be intrigued enough to be following?
Oh my gosh, yeah. I mean, I think we need it. And I was kind of hoping we'd do it without Omega, because the guys would actually have to deal with their nonsense. But I think it makes sense to have Omega there for part of it, at least this early stage, because to my point earlier, someone has to be there to mediate between these guys, because they're all going to be full of ego and testosterone, right? And they're just going to want to be set in their ways and not talk and just be mad at each other and then throw their arms up and walk away. So it makes sense to have Omega there, but we desperately need this, right? The team needs to heal, and they need to find something to reconnect over. And I still want to hear about the loss of Tech and how that, like, how much does Crosshair already know? And then how are they going to retell some of that story? They don't seem to really tell stories in general. I should leave those expectations at the door. But, how do we bring that in, and how does maybe some of the blame that Hunter and Wrecker put on Crosshair for Tech's death, which I think there's probably resentment there, from that he wasn't there to help. If they had another man, if they were a man stronger, they would have been in a much better place. They wouldn't be having some of these challenges. But from Crosshair's perspective, he feels abandoned by the team, and he has to unload all of that stuff too, and help, they have to understand where he's coming from and how he felt he was doing what was the right thing, or how he was programmed, or however that actually, maybe we get more details as to what was going on with Crosshair with the chip, and what was his choice and what really wasn't his choice.
Yeah.
I'm really hoping he didn't have 100% choice in the matter, but there's got to be something where he's like, well, I didn't have a choice, but I was already leaning that way anyway, and here's why.
Yeah. And I'm with you. Like, I would be okay if the episode was, fully focused on the reunion itself, the reconciliation of everyone, just getting through all that, because I think there's a lot there. I don't see how they can't. I mean, there's nothing that's pressing where they're going to say, okay, let's just table this and we'll come back to it later because we've got a mission to do right now. There's nothing like that right now. So really, either they stay on this planet. Well, they're not going to stay on the planet because that ship's there. They're going to go back to Pabu maybe, or wherever they go back to. Maybe it's just all in space. There's a lot of emotions to get through. The conversation about Tech, you and I talked and speculated about whether or not Omega ever told him. And I think it works in both ways. I didn't envision that the conversation would happen, like you said, in front of Wrecker and Hunter as well. That becomes a very different conversation than just Omega recollecting about what had happened to Tech. Now it's like Crosshair gets to see the weight of what that did to her. He gets to see firsthand testimony from Hunter and what it meant to Wrecker, right? What it meant to that team and what it did to the team, right? All of that, like, I don't know. I mean, I almost feel bad for Crosshair because he's not on the positive side here of anything, right? He's going to be taking a lot of it on the chin, and rightfully so. But I'm more curious about how he responds to that. Does he push back? Does he give into it? Does he say, "You're right, I screwed up. I won't do it again," kind of thing? I don't know. And part of me feels like I don't know that he's ready for all of that yet either.
Yeah, and I think it goes both ways though too. Of why did you not come with us when you were on the platform after the destruction of Camino?
Right.
I mean, it's just having converse. I mean, you just got to get it out there and do it. And I think Crosshair was definitely in the wrong for a lot of things, but also trying to flip it around. I think this is where Omega is important to have there, is that she'll help them. Maybe she'll be more empathetic and sympathetic to some of that, to understand where Crosshair was coming from about why he was making the decisions, and that they need to move forward too, let go of it. His actions now are trying to redeem, might be the strong word, but the actions now are what he should be judged against, not against what he was. And again, he has to pay, pay in finger quotes here, and live with the decisions that he's done before and a lot of the terrible things that he did while he was with the Empire. But he can live every day from here on out doing the same things that we did. We did things for the Republic that ended up becoming the Empire. So how are we any better in some ways? We thought we were fighting for the right things, but are we really guilt-free in any of our decisions either, right? So I think keeping that in perspective in the team and starting to crack that shell a little bit for Hunter, probably more specifically. I think we've seen Wrecker kind of go back and forth. This is, I think, the firmest we've seen him, because it's the one time we've seen this type of emotion where you could just see that anger and that resentment towards him. And I have a feeling there's a lot of that is because of Tech. I think a lot of it's the past, but I think it's also just the loss of Tech still feels so fresh, even after 5 months, right? And so that's why I really hope that's an important part of the story. And I hope that it affects Crosshair in that way of, when he was speculating, maybe they're not even alive. Well, one of them's not. So how does that actually make you feel, Crosshair?
Yeah.
Like, what is your response to that? Knowing that they, and he's probably going to instantly blame himself in some ways, or at least going to project that they're going to blame me for that too. But he's got to get over some of that too. And so I think this is where Omega is important. I'm kind of hoping they do this on the ship. I like the idea of going back to Pabu, and I think Skywalker's Academy had the same idea as you did. Going back to Pabu recognizes the return. Because you have a place to do that. Plus you have these other clones, these boys that they found before in the previous episode as well, or 2 episodes ago.
Yeah.
So that's another way there. You get feedback in the mix too. So you have some other alternatives there, and then you can figure out if they're going to go different directions or not. And again, this could be the storming of Pabu that's coming up here pretty soon too.
Well, and that's what I'm thinking too. Like the infiltration could be the episode of where they come into Pabu, and then to kind of lead in our final topic here, whether or not Omega is going to be recaptured. Because I still
think that's a thing. Yeah,
I still think it's a thing. Like, and it feels more appropriate now because they've already kind of signaled that all these bounty hunters would be kind of anticlimactic if it didn't happen. But yeah, I mean, I could see a situation where the return is, them on Pabu, we're getting kind of the calm before the storm, and I'm not trust me, I'm not looking for a family counseling session where they're all on couches and we watch them talk to a therapist for 27 minutes. I'm not
in their armor,
in their armor, right? Because they never change. But there's maybe some aspects of that, or they get wind that something is coming, and they've got to realize that the Empire is coming, and so they prep themselves, and we leave off with them, all these ships coming out of hyperspace outside the space right outside of Pabu, right? So that could maybe the lead off there. So infiltration, them coming and doing all that, and the extraction would be the extraction of Omega, which I think would set us up for, because now like I said earlier, like they need something to kind of rally them together. They need something to kind of bring them together and coalesce them together as a team, as a family once again. And what better to do that? Similar to like when Ezra left. I hate to keep bringing up the Rebels stuff, but similar like when Ezra left and he was gone. Everybody,
very similar storylines, right?
Yeah, everybody rallied around him. They all said, "Look, we got to do it for this kid. He helped me with this. He helped me with that." I can see a very similar situation where they all finally come together and they have to put all this crap behind them, all the baggage. Yeah, you did what you did. We did what we did, kind of thing. But right now, the only thing that matters is Omega, and the only thing that matters are the rest of the clones, the rest of our brothers and sisters that are still on Tantus, being manipulated, being experimented on. Right, that's enough to get Rex and Echo and Cody and everybody, bring everybody in, and that finally, at some point leads us into this big. And we've always talked about this, whether or not this series would have us go through the, the saving of the clones, right? Where they're going to save everybody, and maybe we didn't get that in such the way that we talk about, but there's an opportunity here, I think, for that to kind of still play out in the series.
Oh, absolutely. I think that's still something that'll happen at the very end to some extent. I mean, not everybody will make it out, but I think that's still a goal at the end of the day. But yeah, no, I think you're following the storyline exactly as I would. You know, we you're going to get the bounty hunters showing up. Cad Bane's probably going to make an appearance here in the next episode or two. It seems reasonable, right? Report back to the Empire. Empire's going to come in. They're going to grab her, and then you're going to have to force the Bad Batch to work together in order for the common goal of going and saving Omega. And I think this is where Crosshair has to make a decision about how important Omega is, but also kind of the overall future of what they're trying to build. And maybe he sees some things and feels like he might be pessimistic about it, but at least it starts to crack that shell for him too, of saying, well, maybe there is something here, even for a soldier like me with a really dirty past, you know, and maybe it's possible, right? You just start to think a little bit differently. But again, they need to work together towards, you know, something with Omega, and that helps build that brotherly bond of just in the moment, relying on one each other, building trust, you know, and then of course, I think probably laying his life down the line at the end of the day.
Yeah. Well, and also, Rob, dude, this guy blew my mind last week. When we did the first 3 episodes, he threw this in the comments, and I was not prepared. He said, I think there's a tracker in the doll. And I was like, oh, my God, you're probably right, dude. So the doll that Emery brings back, right? We questioned, like, why would she return it? That seems kind of weird. You know, is she conflicted? What if she's not conflicted? What if she thought or anticipated this is happening, stuck a tracker in it, you know, and it's, you know, something that leads them back to Pabu?
Well, but the tracker is still on Tantus, or the doll's still on Tantus, though. She left it on the bed, I think.
We don't know that. You're starting to sound like a separatist, too.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, but no, either way, there's got to be a way they get back to Pabu. I mean, that's the missing link here, is how that even happened. So
yeah, we had speculated on how they would go back and find her. But now it makes more sense, though, with they're all together. They send the bounty hunters out. How Cad Bane finds them, because I'm assuming it's going to be Cad Bane. How Bane finds them is interesting, but then again, this is what he does, right? So he could find a way that leads back to Pabu, and that's what leads to the Empire. So it's not tracking Fee's ship or something, or seeing what else they're doing around the galaxy, because it seems like they're relatively quiet right now for the most part, except for a few odds and ends missions. But yeah, so it kind of seems like that those pieces are starting to fall into place a little bit.
Yeah. All right. So, I mean, I guess the outside of the reunion kind of coming quicker than we thought, I think we've talked enough, or at least talked ourselves into being okay with it and thinking about how exciting the rest of the series can go at this point. Anything else that stood out? Any other kind of last final thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, Stephanie made a comment about, she felt like the reunion maybe fell a little flat. She didn't even cry. We're really used to crying in these moments. I call her the comment out because I kind of understand it really well, because we've had so many emotional moments in the Clone Wars, in Rebels, in Bad Batch, in all of these animated series for us, that it was weird for that moment to come up, and it didn't elicit as strong of a emotional reaction as many of the other ones have. I think that it still had it, and I think for some people it was very intense, it sounds like, and some of the people in our circles seemed to really love it, and I think it had the emotional weight there, but did it really get you? I think not, but I'm actually going to say that that's okay, because I think when we get the final reunion and those final ones, the waterworks are just going to be a waterfall. You're just not going to be able to stop it because of all the things that are going to happen. So to have it all up front here in episode 4, it's a little premature, but I kind of get that, though. I think the reunion we expected to, but I think that goes back to exactly of not enough episodes in between, and maybe not enough hardship for Omega in that time period that we saw. So I think it was just maybe execution of what they were trying to accomplish there, a little bit different, but I think, don't worry, you will bawl your eyes out later this season, almost guaranteed.
Yeah, Skywalker's Academy said the same thing. We'll do plenty of crying later, Stephanie. And the actors, the writers, the producers have all said the same thing.
Oh, they dared you not to cry. Yeah.
Yeah, by the time of the end. So, yeah, like this was the preamble, just a little bit of emotion. I'm with her, though. I mean, that's kind of what I was saying. Like, I kind of felt like it happened so quickly. It almost felt like it happened too quickly. But I'm okay with it, knowing that we're still going to get that. And I cry. Star Wars makes me cry more than anything else, and all for good reason, not for bad reasons. For all the good reasons. And yeah, I was the same way. And yet I stayed up to watch this one, so it was like 2:40 in the morning, which I'm like super susceptible to crying because I'm so freaking tired. But it didn't. The waterworks didn't start. But it was still a good moment. I mean, it was good to see them reunited, and that little moment between Wrecker and Omega was pretty special. Hunter didn't really, I don't know, he's kind of a weird dad, but definitely Wrecker and Omega was worth it.
Yeah, I think that moment in particular was good. And again, I think this would be an episode we look back on and we start to see how we feel about this in 3 or 4 episodes. We get towards that mid-season mark. We'll see how we feel about this one and whether or not it was setting us up in the right way, or in kind of a little bit of a reflection there to see, just to get an idea if it was as flat as it may have felt this time around, or if no. I'm glad we got that then, because here's where we're at now and it makes more sense. So
yeah, we have to you have to look at these seasons holistically. You can't just single out a single episode and look at it in that regard. But
exactly.
But speaking of singling out people,
yeah, we had a lot of people out in the chat tonight. Man, I love it, man. You're starting to catch on finally.
No, I'm just delirious.
Yeah, I was about to say it's just delirium setting in. But Steph, Sky, Music Train, JJ Skywalker, My Star Wars Guys, One Up versus CPU, Skywalker's Academy, Mike Rondo, the Godfather himself.
Look, I even wore this shirt for him. Look at that. You see that?
Look at that, man. I have no idea what that says because it doesn't really show up.
It says Star Wars.
Oh, never heard of it. Never. Oh, it's the Emperor. Yeah, there you go. Yeah. So Mike joined us. Qui-Gon J, Risk. If I missed anyone, not intentional, my sincerest apologies. But if you're curious about the live stream, we do this twice a week. So Thursdays and Sundays. Of course, Thursday is going to be our Bad Batch Day. CantinaCast.com/YouTube is where you can go to subscribe to the channel. If you like the content you're doing, please do leave us a like. Leave us a comment. Let us know what your favorite part of a different approach was. If there's something that we should be looking forward to that we didn't talk about, leave us in the comments. We'd love to see that. And of course, if you're curious about some of our great Patreon content, CantinaCast.com/Patreon. Again, we'll see what we got on tap for this weekend, but generally on Sundays, we're doing a bit of a Bad Batch deeper dive, but we'll see how Albert's feeling this week before we commit to that one. But usually that's what we'll do on Sunday evenings, for the season of Bad Batch here.
Yeah. Hey, let's not forget, Lauren just released a video that I know you and Rob have been waiting for a long time.
Yeah, Lego Cat just joined us in the chat as well. So hey, Lego Cat. Yeah, Lauren just released Hard Contact. So she's got a 20-minute video out there from the Republic Commando Book 1. Yeah, My Star Wars Guy Rob and I are huge fans of this book. Lauren is now a fan of this book, and I told her, I was like, I am so relieved you like this book, because I penned like everything on it that this is a great book. Karen Traviss, I miss Karen Travis's writing in Star Wars so much. Yeah. Because not only does she like an expert at crafting battle scenes, it's just like Tom Clancy of Star Wars, but she really gets characters, and she gets these characters and the world building that she did for the Mandoa and the clones and the relationships and individualization, like the scenes that we got from Yoda in Clone Wars. This stuff just takes it to a whole nother level. And these books, these first 3 in particular, are just so amazing. But Lauren did a fantastic job recapping the book, giving you some spoilers in there. It really quenches your thirst. Really wants you to get in there and read these books. So highly recommend you get those. But go visit that video over on the YouTube site, CantinaCast.com/YouTube. It's the most recent one in the novels and comics playlist there.
Yeah. Good job, Lauren. Thank you so much for doing that. And programming notes. Let's see. So like we said, this Sunday, Ed and I will be back for Waystation. Lots of news this week. The last 2 weeks. So a lot of good stuff to talk about there. And then Jonesy and I will hit our Patreon show Sunday night around 10 p.m. Central. So, all right. We are going to leave it there. There's a question. We'll hit that. Hey, Trent, we'll get your question in the comments because I'm about to die. All right. Jonesy, any last words, final thoughts while I stall?
Nope. We'll see you next week, everyone.
All right. See you then.
You're still listening? Wow, that's amazing. Well, I'm here to give you the disclaimer. Normally we do a big, long, drawn-out disclaimer thing saying what's what and who's what and all that other stuff, but I think you guys kind of know that Lucasfilm and Disney have no affiliation with us at all, and we have none with them. We talk about Star Wars, which is their property and all that other good, fun stuff, but I think you can tell which is our stuff and which is their stuff. If you can't, well, then send a lawyer to send an email to me, and I'll be glad to chat with them. Other than that, you know what's what, so that's your disclaimer.